Welcome to episode 5 of the Find Me in Seattle podcast. I don't know why I actually feel so nervous today. It's maybe because I'm overextending myself on the content. For those of you here watching on YouTube over there, or Instagram over here, or listening in your ears on the podcast, I have my cell phone set up. I'm doing the Friday morning time lapse of me recording the podcast. I have my Canon video camera set up on my desk, shooting me here. I have the stand-up microphone, which you on video can see that I used to record this podcast. But I also have my camera mic plugged in on my shirt here so I can record the audio directly into the camera, and it kind of doubles up to have two forms of audio here for the show. And I'm maybe just overextending myself a little bit. This is the first time I've ever done the show with not just recording. The first 4 episodes, I was just focused on, let's put the microphone here. I have my spreadsheet with all my topics and ideas, and let's just start talking to this microphone. And now I've got the time lapse going and the video camera going. And yeah, maybe it's a little too much. Now I understand why all of these podcasters have producers, so they can actually just sit and talk and get all their ideas out, and they're not worried about, are the 2 different microphones on? Is it filming me? Is the lighting okay? Is there too much noise coming from the background? It's a little ridiculous, but thank you for everyone who's watching me, wherever you are watching me. I appreciate you a lot. So let's get into episode 5. It is Friday the 13th. I'm curious, do you think that's a lucky day or an unlucky day? I think when I was younger, it was like always a unlucky day, but as my perspective has changed a little bit, I think it's a lucky day now. I'm excited about it being Friday the 13th. What awesome opportunities could come about? Who knows? I think that all comes down to your perspective, right? Are you an optimistic or a pessimistic person? Is it the glass half empty or is it half full? I think the trajectory of your day is so much dictated about your present. So even though I would say, my fiance would say I'm a pretty pessimistic person, I would say I'm more of a realistic optimist. I think I'm pretty hopeful and positive for the most part, but I don't let it get the best of me, or I don't try to take it out of control. I understand, some things just aren't going to go the way you want it to go. And so it's been a slow week for me because I know I was reviewing the stuff that I said last week, and I had all these plans. I had multiple restaurants that I was supposed to visit and review, and then all of those plans got canceled this week. I had 3 different restaurant visits planned during lunch and evenings, and all 3 of them had to get canceled / rescheduled. And so it was a weird week for me. I didn't do a ton of profiling, because once those got canceled, I just didn't really feel like spontaneously going and finding other places. And obviously I ate food every single day, but I just didn't want to create as much content. And simultaneously, I think I've had the worst performing week on my Instagram account in a really long time. My numbers are drastically down. And to kind of talk about that a little bit, because I do get asked that question, like, how do you keep up? How do you maintain the positivity, the consistency, and not get so bogged down? Because it's so easy on social media to get bogged down with these things every single week or every single day. You have to always be creating new content and coming up with new ideas and finding the best angles and writing all those freaking captions, which is my least favorite part, coming up with all the hashtags. It is a burden, and I struggle with it just like everyone else does. I can't even imagine what it's like for the Instagrammers who take pictures of themselves every day. I'm lucky because I'm just taking pictures of food and it's not stuff of me. But when people are taking photos of themselves, I just would imagine it's so hard to look at yourself and be picking the best photo and the outfit and the best lighting and all those details. Nitpicking yourself every single day has just got to be very difficult. And if you can keep your mind right while doing that, you're a special someone. And I give you props for that, because I just don't want to do that. That sounds really difficult, and I'd probably hate myself if I was doing that. But when it comes to having bad numbers, like, I just always remind myself, it doesn't really matter, right? I have plenty of work. I have a lot of content that I'm working on. I have paid gigs coming up. I'm having a blast. I have so much fun doing this ridiculous thing. Like, I'm sitting in my room on a Friday. Most of you are probably at work, and I'm like filming myself on all these cameras and talking into this microphone to myself. So I should stop complaining, because it's not. And so, later this afternoon, I'm just going to work on getting more Instagram content out. I assume my numbers were low because I think I've posted like 3 times, and maybe I should get that up to like 7. But enough talking about that. We'll talk more about that here in the future, because I've got some rants about Instagram and TikTok and social media in general that I want to get out there and see what you guys think. But this week is an interesting week. I kind of called this the anniversary of Find Me in Seattle as a company. So 2 years ago this week, I was, let's say, laid off from my previous job. I was working at a startup. I worked there for almost 5 years. It was my longest job I ever had, and very passionate, very committed to that job. But financially, the company hit a road bump, and no one was going to get paid that month. So everyone in the company got laid off temporarily. And I knew it was coming. The week leading up to that, it sounded like that's what was going to happen. And on that Thursday, I got a warning, like, this most likely is what's going to happen tomorrow. And then on Friday, the news was dropped, like, hey, I don't know, there's no money in the bank to pay us, so you're all going to go on unemployment on Monday, and we'll get you back in the following month. And that was a big turning point for my life, because that evening, I left that meeting getting laid off, and I was hosting my own event. I used to host this series of events called Breakfast Club, which I really want to bring back. These were really fun. There was a lot of really good friendships and connections made at this more or less food-focused networking event. But to the point, I was hosting Breakfast Club at a place in Belltown. At the time, it was called Absinthe Bar. And they set up all of this complimentary absinthe and vodka drinks, and they had food for us. And it was really cool. And I went straight to that event. And yeah, we were just taking shots of absinthe. And I didn't even tell anyone. I didn't even mention to Amanda that I had gotten let go. So that party was fun. Drank way more than I expected that I would, even though it was at an absinthe bar. And then I was going to a holiday ugly sweater party. And I had this Santa sweater that has sparkling lights on it. You'll see that here on my Instagram later tonight, this weekend, because I'm going back to that party. But I remember telling Amanda, going to the ugly sweater party, that I had gotten let go from my job and I wasn't going to work on Monday. And technically on Monday, that was the beginning of Find Me in Seattle as a full-time company, or at least of my full-time focus for the time being, before I had to find another job. And this weekend, that same ugly sweater party is back up again. And now for the 3rd time, it's just a memory and kind of like a checkpoint for me that, wow, 2 years ago, I stopped working as a W-2 employee. I'm hoping for the last time, at least in a long time, and kicked me off on this new journey. And I've been fired, let go, laid off from other jobs, and it just didn't have the same feeling. I was actually really excited about the prospects in the future that were coming. And so I'm really just looking forward to putting on this ugly sweater and putting myself in that mindset. Like, what's coming ahead for my company now? Where are we going to go? And here we are 2 years later, and I'm recording this silly podcast now. And I hope you guys are enjoying my absolute nonsense. And I hope I continue to just make this thing better and provide some entertainment for you here in your ears. And so this week I'm going to start doing some categories. And so the first category I'm going to start with is, I'm calling it the meal of the week. So I'm eating, right, just like everyone else. I eat 3 meals a day, sometimes 2 meals a day. And instead of like talking about all the places that I went, I think I'm just going to focus on one and say, this was my favorite meal of the week. Here's the business it was at. Here's what the meal was all about. And and hopefully I'll improve on being more descriptive and what this is all about. So the first topic, the meal of the week. I only really had one featured meal this week. And so it was more or less the default because on the first meal of the week, I'm not going to talk about some of these homemade meals or non-restaurant focused, because you guys don't care about that, at least yet. So my meal of the week is from a restaurant in the International District. It's located in the bottom corner of Uwajimaya there in the food court, and it's called Congeez. So if you don't know what congee is, it is an Asian rice porridge. Imagine this. You take steamed white rice and you flooded it with water. So it kind of becomes like mushy, almost like a soupy oatmeal. And that's all it is, right? It is just a rice soup. And then the one at Congeez, they load it with ginger, which was really good. And then usually there's some type of protein that's thrown in there. So they offered a lot, but I got shredded chicken on this one. It's got some seasoning. It's like a very basic meal, but in Asia, and specifically with my trips in Thailand, it's a very common breakfast meal that you can get all over Asia. And it's something that I've just kind of missed. And looking forward to my trip coming up in Asia in a couple months. I was looking for something that wasn't like overly thick or hearty. I didn't want a lunch to like knock me on my butt. And I think I was just kind of feeling very plain as the day goes. And so when I was walking through the International District and I was like, all right, there's all these noodle dishes. There's hum bao. There's Vietnamese noodle soup. And then I saw Congeez at the end and I was like, that's the perfect thing. It's very mild, very easy on your stomach, but it's got lots of flavor, surprisingly, between the chicken and the ginger and all the seasoning on top of the rice porridge. Just absolutely delicious. If you guys are looking for something, especially on like a cold day, or if you are sick, it is great for the sick days that you have, because it's just mild and soupy, and it's not going to hurt your stomach a lot. And so shout out to Congeez and getting the shredded chicken congee there in the International District at Uwajimaya. It was super good. I didn't do enough research on Congeez, but I heard that the owner of Congeez has, his family has a series of restaurants here in the city as well. And I got some recommendations on where else you can get some good congee at Soy in Capitol Hill. That's I believe a northern Thai-focused restaurant, but in Thai, they call it Jok, J-O-K, and you can get Jok or congee there. And then Canton Noodle House also is known for some really good congee. And I got some other recommendations there on my Instagram, but those are the two that come to mind. So shout out to Congeez, my meal of the week. So my second topic of the week is now going to be my featured business of the week. And I know this kind of has some crossover with meal of the week, but yeah, it might as well do something different. A meal of the week kind of gives me some flexibility if I eat something different, or I eat at someone's house, or I do something private. But my featured business of the week was a business that I actually visited last week, and that was a Lowrider Baking Company. Lowrider Baking Company is a cookie shop and pop-up that you can find in the Central District. So Emily is the founder of Lowrider Baking Company, and I just love the hustle and where she's come, because she started doing pop-ups. I was talking about Breakfast Club earlier in the episode, and I actually hosted a breakfast club with her and her cookies. I remember we did it outside. She brought this giant box of cookies, and we cut them all up, and we probably had 30 people there, and it must have been like 10 in the morning. We were at a coffee shop, so everyone got coffee, and we just stuffed our face with cookies. And they're absolutely delicious. But Emily has moved from just doing pop-ups to doing farmers markets to having a little shop at the Georgetown. Is it called the Georgetown Trailer Park? I feel like that's not the right name, but in Georgetown, they kind of have that little shopping center right there. And now she actually has like a more of a retail space up in the Central District over there by Uncle Ike's. And it's more or less, you just walk up to the counter that's right there inside the front door, and they have all of the baking happening in the back. But after the holidays, they had a lot of extra cookies. And so I saw on their Instagram account, they were giving away a dozen cookies for $11. I guess you could say the downside was that you didn't get to choose the cookies. All the boxes were pre-made, but I think that was kind of fun. It was like a mystery box. And for $11 for these premium cookies, I thought it was a screaming deal. So I happened to be in the area, and I drove over there and got myself a box of cookies, and then I passed them out because I could definitely eat 12 cookies, but I went over to some of my neighbor's house, passed them out. I think I ate like 3 or 4. But Lowrider Baking is just like an awesome story. They're one of the cornerstone reasons why I love doing this whole Find Me in Seattle thing, because over the last couple years now, to see a company like Lowrider go from just it being an experimental pop-up, going to the farmers markets and establishing themselves as a brand and getting into a retail space is so freaking cool. And I'm just very proud of them in that story. That's the entrepreneurial story that we all admire and look up to. That's the American dream right there. And I think that's just so cool that they've done that. And their cookies are amazing. I think Lowrider was actually one of the first like branded collaborations I ever did. And this was probably what impressed me about Emily the first time I ever met her. She hit me up on Instagram. This was within the first couple months that I had even been posting about Find Me in Seattle. I probably had less than 1,000 followers at that time. And she hit me up. She's like, hey, I'll give you a box of cookies if you promote them on your Instagram account. And I'm addicted to cookies. So I was like, heck yeah. And then what I did is I took the box of cookies and I rode the 62 bus from Green Lake all the way down to downtown. And I got off the bus a couple times and then caught it back down. So I took a picture with some of the cookies in Green Lake. I took a picture with a cookie at the Fremont Troll and then down at Pike Place Market. And it was just this it was one of the first times where I was like, know what? This is so cool that I'm doing this for the day. I got this free box cookies and I'm just going to travel the bus around and take pictures with these cookies in some of my favorite Seattle spots that I go to all the time. And that was a big inspiration of all this stuff that I do now. And so shout out to Emily. I appreciate that hustle that when she was getting started, she was just reaching out to people on the internet and was like, hey, I'll give you free cookies if you promote them on your site. And I'm sure she attributes some of that to the success of her shop and where she's at now. And so Lowrider Baking Company, go check them out in the Central District, or find them. It's in the winter, so there's probably not a lot of markets, but I bet there's some holiday markets. You can check them out on Instagram or visit their website, or just give them a Google and go eat their cookies. If you're looking for cookies for the holidays, Lowrider Baking is where it is at. All right, so I'm getting here close to the end of the episode. An event that I want you guys to know about that I'm attending on Saturday, as long as it doesn't rain. This is one of my favorite events of the year. I try to go every single year. It's known as the Green Lake Pathway of Lights. And so they always need volunteers. I volunteered a couple years ago doing this. And what happens is the Green Lake Parks and Rec team, they go around all 3 miles of the lake. They take these bags, they fill the white paper bags with sand, and they drop a candle in them. I think maybe they drop a light in them now. It's not a candle. And it lights up the paper bag. And then every couple of feet, they put one of these bags around the path of Green Lake. So when the sun goes down at like 4 o'clock, the entire pathway is lit up by these little paper lanterns, and then thousands of people flock to Green Lake and do the loop around the lake, which might take you an hour, but people dress up in crazy costumes, wear lights, there's kids like in wagons covered in lights, and it's just like the perfect festive holiday moment of Seattle where people freeze their butts off. They go outside, they have hot chocolate. I'm sure lots of people bring drinks, especially if you got a wagon, right? You can just fill up. And I think it's just a very neighborly thing to do. We talk about the Seattle Freeze here. I've got a rant on the Seattle Freeze that I'm going to unleash here at some point. But this is like not that at all. All these people come out and celebrate themselves in the community, and they just enjoy time in the neighborhood. And the Green Lake Pathway Lights is this Saturday, Saturday, December 14th. And I highly encourage you, you pretty much only would know about this if you're listening to the show here on Friday, but it's such a fun time. As long as it's not raining. I went one year when it was raining and windy, and I felt so bad because all of the sand-filled bags were all over the place. They probably didn't recoup any of those bags because they got destroyed by the wind and the rain. And it was just a really big failure. There wasn't anyone out on the lake. And I think we walked halfway and then we caught an Uber because it was just miserable. But as long as it's not raining tomorrow, I'll be out there because it's a ton of fun. And a great way to go support local businesses. Make sure you go spend some money, even if it's like buying a hot chocolate or a coffee while you're out there, or go get dinner and then walk around. It's a very fun time. I think it probably ends around 7, so it ends early. And it's just a very cool community-oriented event. There's not a lot of other things that happen quite like the Green Lake Pathway Lights. So that concludes the 5th episode of the Find Me in Seattle podcast. Thank you very much for everyone listening here, whether it's on Anchor or Spotify or Stitcher or hopefully on iTunes here this week, or if you're up here and you're watching it on YouTube. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you shoot me a message on any of those social platforms. Let me know that you listened. Even shoot me a text if you have that number, or leave me a review. They say that those things are really important. So that would be a big help to me, getting this out there. I'm going to start promoting this a little bit more. That's why I'm recording it, and hopefully get some more. And then going into 2020, we're setting up the plan so we can do some more interview style so you guys don't get so bored with me just talking your ears off. I hope you guys have a fantastic day whenever you are listening to this, and I love you. I appreciate you for watching, listening, taking part, and supporting Find Me in Seattle in any way you do. Those likes, those subscribes, those shares, all those things mean the world to me. Those really are my currency. So thank you so much for helping me out in any of those ways. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you next Friday for the next episode. See ya.